Okay.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty.
Today.
Can have a motion to approve the minutes from March 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alrighty, Mr. Blake, there's that. Okay, item number 2 is going to be Department on Aging.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, it is time to,
Okay.
Yeah, I got one in here.
Okay.
it is time to get our Sugar and Falls Park lease in place. Just a little bit of a history. The facility itself is a little over 9,000 square feet. What we, 6,700 of that square footage, we use about at a 75% capacity. There are some school programs that happen, so like the gymnasium, we might use it 4 days a week, the children might use it once. So when I calculated the lease space, I kind of took 75% of that 6,700 square feet.
Okay.
So our total square foot that we are leasing is about 7,657 square foot. Last year we paid $2,000 a month. It's $24,000 a year. It's $313 roughly per square foot. We do not pay any utilities. There's no additional costs. So the proposed rent for 2014 is the same. So and just looks good.
Square footage.
Our average daily census is 32. The yearly census is 640, and we do get a couple Geauga County folks that do join in because of how close. About 5%, no more than 5% of participants.
And that 640, Jessica, is unique individuals.
Yes, individuals with a first and a last name,
Right,
not
yeah.
duplicated.
Right.
5% of the participants are roughly unregistered or out of county. So not too many folks access, but just a few. And we use the building Monday through Friday, a minimum of about 9.5 hours each day, 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m.
5 days a week.
Yeah, I've been down there for a number of different events, and they
Nice space.
generally are pretty packed when they had that. I think it was St. Patrick's Day, the last one, last year.
Before my time, a little before my
They
time.
had St. Patrick's Day, and they had this guy singing all these Irish ditties. It's kind of fun.
It's a
The
great
place was
space.
packed, you know.
Great space, computer lab, gymnasium,
They
great
had
space.
gym and a good facility for cooking.
Alrighty. Okay, so let's go ahead and read number 2.
The Department on Aging is requesting the board approve and execute the lease with the Sugar and Falls Park Community Center for the period April 1st, 2014 through March 31st, 2015 in the amount of $2,000 a month or an amount not to exceed $24,000.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Sweden?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye, motion will stand approved.
Thanks for bringing these to us this way. We do appreciate that, so we have a good handle.
Okay, so do you want to go to number 4?
That's.
Oh, that's
That's
actually
part
part
of
of
it,
it. Yep,
yeah.
yep.
5, Matt couldn't be here. He
All right.
going after an animal. This is just a part-time person. It's in his budget.
Okay.
To maintain services.
All right, and you don't, everything is good? You don't
Yeah.
see any issues?
No.
All right, if we want to read number 5.
The dog warden is requesting the board approve hiring Patricia Evans to the position of part-time shelter attendant number 1607 to be effective March 31st, 2014 at a rate of $10.17 per hour. After the successful completion of a 1,000-hour probationary period, the rate will increase to $10.70 per hour.
Also moved.
Second.
Commissioner Sweden?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye, motion will stand approved. And then Dave, do you want to read number 6 also, to talk about that?
Yeah, John Gerber is a longtime driver. He's actually a guy from Newberry and had a full career, some professional capacity.
Okay.
And when he retired, he decided he wanted to be a transit driver. He's provided great service, but he's decided now it's time to really retire.
probably is tired of the road conditions.
Well, yeah,
Especially today, last summer.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, if we could read number 6 then.
The Transit Department is requesting the board accept the retirement resignation of John A. Gerber, part-time driver number 2210-1 to be effective February 26, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Resignation, retirement is approved. The Department of Water Resources, got 5 more minutes before this public
We'll
hearing.
get it in.
Stretch it out a little.
I can fight.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to straight, you want me to-
Well,
Wait,
5
wait,
minutes.
yeah.
yeah.
Minutes.
5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes, that's all.
And then we'll go back to that.
Okay, well, the first one is the service contract, and it's for Cummings Bridgeway, and this is actually a service contract we're using this time. It's not a one on hold, just in case. And for our generators are McFarland, and the 2 of them in Parkland. Okay, so this is our annual thing that we do, that we have to make sure the generators are maintained properly.
They should be back.
Yep.
The one in McFarland, what is that powered by? Is that natural gas or is that
Diesel.
it's diesel? Yeah,
Diesel.
that's gotta be a big one.
It is. Yeah, well, it's the treatment plant 1.8 million gallons a day.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. We can go ahead and read number 7 then.
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board approve, execute, and initial the service contract agreement with Cummins Bridgeway LLC to perform plant maintenance for the generators located at the McFarland Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant, Bainbridge Township, Parkland Pump Station, and the Parkland Wastewater Treatment Plant in Parkland Township for the year 2014 in an amount not to exceed $6,938.22.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye, motion will stand approved. We've got number 8 done.
With the new union contract, one of the agreements in there, if a maintenance worker had 10 years of experience total between here and elsewhere, and had an operator's license, a possibility that we would post internally for a change to a different title there to a maintenance specialist. And Ray Ferranaci meets those requirements.
Okay.
So we'll post internally for 10 days for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this.
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board grant permission to advertise internally for the position of maintenance specialist number 2329 for a period of 10 days in accordance with the union contract.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye, motion will be approved. And then Doug, the number 9 regarding the advertise for bids.
Okay, we took bids last week for the Thompson Sewer project, and we had 6 bidders for the wastewater treatment plant. The estimate for that was 1.9 million, and the lowest that we're going to accept, which is the alternative site as of now. Hopefully USDA is gonna approve that, is for 1.6 million. So we saved $300,000 below the estimate. We had no bidders at all for the sewer project, and they called them and talked to them. And they thought that the bores in the rock were too expensive, so that they didn't want to turn in a bid if they knew that they weren't within 10% of the bid.
Oh.
So since we had the cost estimate as 1 million, USDA gave us, okay, well then the 300,000 you saved for the treatment plant, let's put that into the cost estimate for the sewer and re-advertise.
So now it's 1.3?
We're going to advertise 1.3, and the bids will be due on April 2nd or 3rd.
So
whatever
you
that
think
was.
that they will bid under those conditions then?
Right. It should be within the 10% with that
Okay.
1.3 million. And then the still package deal for the entire project will still be the same.
Yeah,
The overall estimate.
Yeah.
okay.
All righty, we can go ahead then and have a read on number 9.
These ones
The
are
Department of
good.
Water Resources is requesting the board grant permission to advertise for bids for the Thompson Sewer Project Contract B to be held Wednesday, April 2nd, 2014 at 2:00 p.m. Notice of this bid opening will be advertised on March 14, 2014, March 21st, 2014, and on the county website.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye, motion will stand approved. Thank you, Doug. Have a good day. Okay. We're at 10:10 right now, and we'd like to have a public meeting to address the ODOT with the Department of Aging.
Do we need to waive the
Reading of the public
reading of the
notice.
public notice? I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Bear with me, this is my first time at the public hearing, so would you just like me to describe,
Yeah.
what we're doing? Okay, wonderful. So, the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging sent us an email and let us know that there's a 2014 Specialized Transportation Program grant available for those who provide transportation services for the elderly and persons with disabilities. So the funding is from the Federal Transit Administration, and it provides federal funds for the purchase of equipment for the support of these transportation services. And what they do provide is 80% of the cost of a capital item. The remaining 20% must be provided by local funding. We have our out-of-county medical transportation program at the Department on Aging, where we take folks, of course, out of the county to Hillcrest, Cleveland Clinic, Lake County for their medical appointments. And something that we determined we could use is a new handicap-accessible vehicle. Right now, we do have a, I believe it's, Joanne, is it a 9-passenger van?
It's an Econoline, it's a big van.
But it doesn't have the,
No, it has all the
It
equipment,
has
but
what we
it's so
need,
big,
but
it's
it's very
kinda
big and
tippy.
it's top heavy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So essentially, we cannot use it throughout the winter months. It just does
Oh.
not drive very well, which brings us down to one accessible vehicle, which is our bus. And I would say it's difficult when you have multiple persons in multiple places and only one handicap accessible vehicle. You may not be able to route as efficiently as possible. So something we would like to request is to submit the application for an MV1. It looks like an SUV. It's a lower profile vehicle, heavyweight and rear wheel drive.
Ford chassis.
Yeah.
but it's
Kinda
all
looks like
wheel-
a Honda
is it all-
Element.
It's rear wheel,
That's what
but
it
all
kinda
wheel?
looks like, but
It
it's
is not,
designed.
it is,
It's not
I
all
do,
wheel?
no, it is not all wheel, it is
So-
rear wheel.
Isn't that a Ford Express van?
No, it's a custom designed vehicle, but it kind of looks like a Honda Element. It has that look, but it's purposely engineered to be lower center of gravity.
So you don't have that tipping
Integrated
effect, when you turn
Exactly.
those corners.
With a lower
That's scary.
profile you can get in and out of.
Oh, she got a picture of it.
Okay.
And that's Joanna, she's our transportation coordinator. We did have the opportunity to look at this vehicle.
It's like a regular.
The vendor came to Transit, so we did get to go inside and take a look.
Snow?
Yeah.
How many people does it carry? One?
6?
No, it carries a.
I mean, if you have them in wheelchair, a handicap.
Two passengers in the wheelchair?
They can do 2 small wheelchairs, 1 larger wheelchair, and there's a bench seat in the back that'll hold 3 passengers beside it. So if they have an aid or a companion or someone that needs to go with them. they
So it
can
has
go.
a ramp, so
Yeah,
there's
right here
a
on the
ramp
side.
there, yeah. You're right there.
Mhm.
It just seems like it's got low clearance on the bottom, though. I just wondered, is there clearance on the bottom of the snow?
They were trying to get away from the Econoline size vehicle.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the choice was between that and say taking a minivan that had been with a mobility kit. That's kind of the choice, but I think this is probably a little more heavy
So
duty.
that's better on gas
design for
too,
it.
gas-wise?
It
Well,
is
it's
good.
better than the Econoline.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Mhm.
And we also are using our large bus
Oh,
to manage one person for an out-of-county medical
the
trip, which
transit
isn't
bus.
very
and that's
Yeah.
always been a
efficient on
criticism,
gas.
You
yeah.
have some difficulty getting into
Yeah.
parking lots and parking areas where you have
Exactly.
the overhead thing, clearance 7 feet or something
Right,
like that.
right.
You're not gonna get your current vehicles in
Right.
there.
Right, so this, just looks like your average normal vehicle. We can fit in a regular parking spot, easy to pull up to the curb. It was a great vehicle. It was nice to be able to get inside the vehicle and take a look around. And, something, I used to drive a bus at one point, and I experienced the ramp braking and whatnot. So one thing I asked the vendor was, if the ramp breaks, what do you do? How do you get someone, out of the vehicle? And because it is lower to the ground, you can pretty much pull it up to a curb, and that would be a good way
Oh,
to get
is that
someone
right?
out as a contingency plan.
Yeah,
But you couldn't do that with an Econoline.
You cannot
size
do that
vehicle.
with an no, no,
or a truck,
no.
I can
Do
hardly
it,
get
it
in.
wouldn't be
I need
successful.
a
See,
step.
they were actually, they were looking at replacing this vehicle last year, and then they decided to hold off.
Yeah.
But now this grant came available, so now we had the opportunity to use less of our own funds to acquire a vehicle that would be better suited than what they have right now.
Oh, it looks like it's good. Well, I would make a
No,
motion
this-
to come out of, are you-
No, I'm fine.
okay, well, I would make a motion to come out of the hearing.
Okay.
No
Oh,
public
there's no
questions for anybody?
Questions, comments?
Done with my- So I would make
Second,
that
I'll
motion.
second the motion.
All right.
So do we make them?
Now we go to number 4.
Oh, now we go to number 4.
Okay, so number 4, basically, do we want to just go ahead and do a read on that? Okay.
The Department on Aging is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the Ohio Department of Transportation ODOT fiscal year 2014 Ohio Specialized Transportation Program application.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye, motion approved.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. And let's see, what do we have here while I'm signing these?
Number 10.
Resolution.
Okay, these are both resolutions. Dave, do you want to explain 10, and do you want to, maybe we'll do a read of it so that
Yeah.
we acknowledge
I mean,
that?
10 is, 10, yeah, and Joe is here.
Maybe
There-
you can have them explain.
That was 10, you know, the resolution for 10 was largely created by the folks that really understand the best.
Okay.
That's the engineers. department. Maybe Joe and Mike, if you want to say anything as far as the input.
And that's probably on the very, very high side. And so we will be responsible for that. And then 600 next.
Hello.
Morning, man. Yeah.
How you doing, Joe?
The resolution with respect to NOACA has to do with the course that they seem to be taking these days, and that's to get a loan, two loans, $30 million loan, 2 years successive for $60 million in order to bring up infrastructure that is falling apart within the region. Part of our opposition in a simple term is that we know that won't come to us because it's based on pavement rating conditions, and we keep our stuff in good condition. So NOACA would be applying for $60 million worth of loans that in essence would be paid back over 10 years on a pot of money that is available to us to keep our roads in the condition they're in. So, you know, in simple terms, that's kind of what's going on here. And part of our opposition too is the list of roads. So for roads to get on NOACA's funding, the sponsor would normally be the local government, i.e. in our case, the engineer's office, the commissioners. And in this case, well, you're the member, but yeah, we are the sponsor. But in this case, NOACA would generate the list of roads that need to be done, not the local entities, which we consider to be an issue too. So the resolution really addresses those two items and speaks to, you know, I've talked to individually commissioners here about those concerns, and I think we're in agreement that getting loans for one, there's no jobs on a list anywhere. They just want to go get these loans for $60 million, and there's not even a list of projects to fund with it. It's like, let's go get the money, and then we'll figure out where we're going to spend it.
Yeah, not good.
We think that's a little reckless.
So if,
Although they have come up with the policy that they're presenting to the committees, that would only be 30 million and only on projects on the tip.
They're
Because you have-
currently on the tip?
That are currently on the tip. I mean, that's at least what was emailed to us, the recent one.
Okay, the last thing I saw was obviously a draft, but on the provisional
All of this is
transportation, I
draft,
said-
yeah, it's
so-
draft. But I think it's still good to put that forth.
Yeah.
I mean, in simple terms, they want to borrow money, that we have an obligation to pay a share of that back. That
Well-
we're not going to get anything for.
We're not technically obligated to it,
No.
but it's money that could go to us for our projects in the future, that is being paid out of that pot that
Okay.
NOACA gets.
There's yearly
Okay.
allocations, 3 different pots, but the yearly allocation, depending on their payback period, a portion, you know, if, let's say it was a 10-year payback, well, then 3 million would be pulled out of that year's allocation to go directly to repay the loan. And we've used this, you know, being involved with NOACA since 1991, this actually has been very helpful and strategic in doing some larger projects, but the project was a defined project. It wasn't something made up of, well, in the future, we might want to do this. And while I understand NOACA is a planning agency, I truly agree that they shouldn't be generating projects.
Yeah, and, you know, Mike referred to the SIB loans that have been taken in the past, which we are for, in something like Lake County had Vrooman Road Bridge on there, which is a very good project. It's one of the evacuation routes for the power plant. So, but yet, you have Vrooman Road that right now you're not even allowed to have trucks on, and the bridge is definitely what's down there in the valley. Couldn't accept any kind of flow of traffic, if you're familiar with that. And as they work through it, they, you know, between dealing with environmental and stuff, the projects got delayed several years, and now the price has gone up about $3 million. But they were already programmed. It was a Lake County project. They were programmed. It had all been approved. And, you know, the idea is to use a SIB loan, unlike this one, to take a project that's already there and get it done before the price goes up even more. That's logical. We don't.
It was a defined project. It wasn't
Exactly.
some
Well,
thing out there.
It wasn't, let's put a bunch of money on the docket and then we'll find projects to plug into it. It was not that.
And
was,
it
we
had
have a
its funding
project.
package.
Right.
It had its funding package.
Yeah.
It just,
Just wasn't large enough.
Yeah,
It's
just-
just been delayed in inflation as
you know, they lost that current bridge once a few years back.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole
Yeah.
thing washed out.
Well, it didn't wash out, but in '06 it was covered and it was closed for months.
Yeah, I remember you couldn't
Yeah.
go through there.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, the only other bridge out of that area was under construction, so you couldn't get through there either. So it was bad timing.
well, I just wanted to mention, you know, because I've been having constant conversations, and Joe and I also did with Graves, but what it says here, this is the latest, this is only draft, I understand. It says the RPMS scenario where 30 million per year is added to the already programmed pavement projects on 2014-27 TIP. And then it goes into the funding. NOAC will secure a SIB loan under 30 million per year for 2 years, state fiscal 2015 and SFY 2060. The SIB loan will be paid out of NOAC's control surface program SDP funds over the 10-year. So I don't know if we like the 10-year. I don't know if that was done in the past. Mike, what, was that done in the past for 10 years?
It depends.
It's
on the
always
proj-
been stretched
It depends on
out.
the project and it
Yeah.
depend on, you know, being part of the RTIS that kind of made some of the funding decisions.
Yeah.
I was always involved in that.
Yeah.
We would actually sit down and look at our income in the future, and it's like, okay, this project,
Down
we
the
need
road.
4 million, it
Sure.
makes sense to spread out over 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, so we actually strategically planned, you know,
Well, I just want to make
for
sure
budget reasons.
that-
Based on the individual projects, not just a blanket,
Right.
we'll get
Yeah,
this money and
it's
pay it back
been
in 10
different
years.
for every project.
Well-
You know, and in that same
Yeah.
thing that you're reading, if you go on, it goes on to say that their project selection is gonna be based on pavement condition ratings, and nothing above 75 will be even,
Yeah, it does say the
suggest,
75.
you can't even make
It
the
says the
list.
standard is based on the assumption that
So,
a PCR of
When you
75
start looking
and
at,
greater is considered a slate of good repair.
right, so when you start looking at that, who's gonna be able to be on this list?
Yeah. Well,
does.
what is the number you folks want to be at? 80?
Well, we try to stay up there. In fact, Mike's always done that for this, well, for a long time, has done this for the office. And we found that it's a better investment to keep your numbers up in that range
Oh,
or above.
absolutely.
But
So
it-
that you're not waiting for
Sure,
the entire, you
sure.
know.
Well, that
subgrade
number is
approval.
actually 65.
Right.
I mean,
And this is an
65
arbitrary number
seems
here.
to be that, yeah, that's.
65, so
Yeah.
75 is
The
higher.
thing that's interesting to me is, you know, being involved, and I don't know, you know, the tip is financially constrained already, and I
don't
don't know
see
if
how
people
they
knock on
can-
doors and say, well, we need this year versus the year we're already all plugged into.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, you know, when the county engineers did meet with NOACA staff and asked some of these questions, and it's still concerning because it seemed as though they were gonna come up with projects that weren't necessarily already on the tip.
We
Or
don't
not.
want that.
Right. And, you
That's
know,
our biggest, my biggest concern.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
that's what
it is a big
makes
concern.
sense too.
But
Mhm.
even if that's true, even if they do allow the locals to put them on the list, they've already said that it's gonna be based on pavement condition ratings, and it's gonna be based on, if you go down to the next sentence there, Mary, if you have it up, it's gonna be based on pavement
share this
condition
with you guys.
and traffic
I
data.
can't read it.
Well, our traffic volumes are nowhere near what the city of Cleveland is. So, and our conditions are better. So if you're going by those two criteria, then
Sure.
it shuts us out and the funding goes that direction. And then the money to pay back the loan comes out of a pot that we could have got money from. That'll be reduced. So,
All of the county engineers have their programs laid out, and just like us, turn in a project. I mean, we've turned it in before where 5 years ahead of time is where you need to turn in a
Yes.
project to get in line to properly plan.
tip.
So it's only usually here, only 5 or 6 years old. And our pavement rating conditions sometimes are 90 when we turn them in.
Yeah.
They'll look at us kind of funny. It's like, yeah, no, we're planning for
For
the
the
future.
5 years.
And so, again, it's interesting to me that how those would already be on
They're not.
a list.
They're not.
I can't believe that they are, because
There is no
every other
list.
county plans like we do, or at least the county engineer's office.
Yes.
I should say.
right.
Skip, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple questions, actually, and a comment. When this was initially brought up in the policy committee, there were two concerns that I immediately saw, which Joe and Mike have both talked about today. One had to do with the rating, the other one had to do with taking out loans to do maintenance on roads, and the long-term implication of that. As I read this resolution, I don't see any commentary regarding the measurement, the metric part of that. And the rest of the resolution is a little bit confusing to me in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. So, Joe, can you explain what this resolution is saying? What is it trying to
You
accomplish?
want to see it, Joe?
Yeah, I don't have a copy with me right now. Yeah, in fact, Mike was primary in writing this up based on what's going on here, so I'll allow Mike to comment.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically addressing
Yeah, it makes it.
a lot of the discussion that we had at the county engineers level when we met with Randy Lane. And that was projects being generated by NOACA and setting
want to stay
aside
with the tips.
SIB loans for projects that don't even exist today. That was the two things that we were focusing on.
Did you talk at all about the metrics part of it, the
No.
measurement of it all?
No.
Those are two of the concerns that we've talked about, and
That-
actually.
that's 75.
Yeah, but that part of it is eliminated when you allow the local entities to program their own projects. So you don't need those metrics. If we decide what the priority for Geauga County is, we're saying take it out of their hands completely. They
Right.
don't set that metric.
And I would agree
Right.
with that.
We do for us.
Does this
Medina does for
resolution do
Medina.
that? Does this resolution?
Yes,
do
it
that?
Yes.
takes it out of, yeah, this is saying that NOACA would not be the one generating the list, but the individual government entities would be.
Okay, good, and that's exactly what I
Yeah.
think we want to do.
And that number it can be different based on, we know our roads, we know what's under them, we know, you can let one go a little farther than, they may look the same to the person driving them, but we know what's underneath them. Have they been stabilized? Do they have a concrete base under them? What is it, granulated slag? We know all that stuff. NOACA doesn't know that.
Is there consensus in the county engineers on that?
We didn't take a vote per se, but the voice I heard out of every individual one was exactly the same as
Yeah.
us.
They pretty much stay
Yeah.
hanging together.
Yeah.
And so, Mary, what is the executive committee going to say about this when we take the next?
Well, this first has to go to the policy committee. I mean, it's got to go down to the committee. I mean, I'm not there. I haven't sat there and talked to them. I've talked to Grace and made it pretty clear where we're coming, because she keeps asking me.
So it'll go back to the policy committee?
So we're gonna go back, and we're gonna, I mean, these are all drafts. These are not in granite. I mean, this is not, but with the engineers getting together, I think we have to defer to what our engineers want, period.
The comment that I heard in the policy committee, because I asked this question,
Yeah.
was what's the next step on this? It was going to go from the policy committee to the executive committee.
Well,
and if
that
it-
draft,
And if
but
it
now-
passed the executive committee, it was going to go to the board. And so what I'm hearing you say.
Well, at the executive, we have to really come through, and that's why,
Well, what I'm hearing you say
and the
is
policy,
that
too.
it will now be your feeling.
I think
that
it
it's
should
gonna
go back to the
go back to
policy
policy.
committee,
Okay.
in my opinion, because, we need to have all these engineers step up to the plate, stand there and say what they want, because, let's face it, we handle budgets, we don't handle roads. We listen to our professionals.
Well, my experience is or my read on this when I was in the policy committee is this was going to be all about Cuyahoga County.
Well,
And
it's
so-
always
And they have a
them.
lot of influence, but we have nominal votes. And the executive committee is the next opportunity for us to really kind of alter the direction of all that. And then I'm hoping that that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
And so I'm only bringing that up because
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to do
Now,
that, and I hope it goes in that
You
direction.
were with Bob Cliver, Soleil, Mike
Mike Soleil
Soleil,
was there, yeah.
Jim Gills.
Yep, Jim Gills, yeah.
Who from Cuyahoga?
What's his name?
Stanley.
Stanley,
Stan Kalinsky, who is,
Oh, Kalinsky.
is their person
Okay.
that is,
And
pretty much
who-
sets up their programming.
Okay. And you all were pretty agreed on
Oh,
that.
it seemed to me that.
So
it was
I
completely
think we
united,
have to
so.
stand on
I,
that.
I think your transit
You know?
agencies, everybody is going to be against NOACA coming up with a list
Yeah.
of projects.
Yeah.
In just being
I
there
can
since
hear it.
1991.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
knowing all the people
all the
involved,
money
I
you
don't see
guys
that
have brought in,
happening.
I mean, you know, we have worked together and brought a lot of money into this county, so, yeah, we, will push hard on that. And I will ask for that policy, and I will ask for the engineers to stand up and make it crystal clear to them.
It would probably make sense that if the executive committee did turn it back
Turn it
down
back to policy.
policy, that would.
And then you
that
can
would give
have the
everybody a-
discussions all over
Exactly.
again, and then all the engineers can come and weigh in.
Right, not, then everybody has a chance to truly have soaked this in and what the implications are.
I mean, you folks have done an exemplary job here in Geauga County. Look at our roads. I mean, they're well cleaned, everything's taken care of, and we want to continue that.
And I can tell you, these PCRs in all 5 counties are gonna change after this freeze-thaw cycle.
Oh, I know. This
So
is
shit.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, the problem
So
is,
the PCRs are not gonna
I
be
thought
the
our
same.
other structure was fine.
Yeah, well, yeah. That
We-
was
the
always my
RTS
first question, why did we change it?
Why did we change? You know,
Everybody said it was
you know,
fair
to
and
make
it worked,
more
so they
people
changed it.
engaged. So you get a bunch of people who are basically, you know, are at the top level looking at the whole picture, not the technical people who really know what needs to be done. That's the way I see it.
Can I ask another question, would you mind? Joe and Mike, I'd like to get your take on this. I'm sensing, and I've been going to the NOACA meetings for a little while now, I'm sensing a different mood in NOACA. It used to be that NOACA, I felt like it was more kind of cooperative and more, you know, I'm feeling a stronger move toward taking a proactive move for Cuyahoga County or Cleveland to be capturing more of the good, so to speak. Are you sense that? or not?
I'm reading into it that you have new leadership at the top of NOACA staff who has done things a different way, and she's bringing that different way here. And that's seriously what I'm seeing. I don't see Cuyahoga County I mean, Cuyahoga County only has like 2 miles of road. The rest of them would be the cities who Cuyahoga County themselves work with. And I haven't
But
seen
the city's
mayors or
part
anybody
Rockville.
coming out of the woodwork saying we need to
So-
change things. So I see it as the top level of the new administration, basically, who I think just has different planning ideas than what the group had in the
Well,
past.
I think their idea was to get people more engaged, so that when they came to the meeting, they knew what they were talking about. But, I mean, you're asking people who are, you know, business MBAs, people who have that kind of knowledge, to understand what an engineer understands.
Exactly.
And, you know, I mean, I've lived with one for 47 years, and I still don't get it.
But many of the
So
policies that I'm seeing tend to be in the benefit of the larger cities, however. So if you look at what they're doing with the.
I don't disagree with that
The way
statement.
stuff's
And so,
written
you know,
out.
right now they're trying to work
Well,
towards the benefit of the.
it's
bit- of the
always been
bigger-
like that. When there's been a big controversial thing like what happened to the Avon Lake thing, I mean, that was major battle, and much bigger than this. And, but
There-
I'll tell you, we need to hold tight on this.
Right. And then there used to be policies of weighted votes,
Ah.
where Cuyahoga County could get whatever they wanted by
Well,
just
they
calling
always
for a
could.
weighted vote. So
Then they pay the biggest
some of
amount.
those things have not changed, to be honest.
Thank you.
Well,
So do we want to read the
whole
resolution,
thing?
or do we want to
I think we,
be comfortable to read the resolution that we
you
have?
know, I don't have any problem with you. You wanna read it?
So whereas the Geauga County Board of Commissioners understands the importance of federal aid transportation funding to help fund the highway and transit departments for the county in Northeast Ohio area-wide coordinating agency, NOACA is the controlling metropolitan planning organization, MPO, for federal aid funding available to Geauga County. Geauga County is a member of NOACA and has representatives to help make regional transportation funding decisions within the framework of NOACA. The Geauga County Board of Commissioners has concerns regarding recent changes to NOACA committees and proposals before those committees. NOACA has specifically proposed to borrow state infrastructure money, or bank, SIB, funds to stimulate the quantity of local transportation-related projects within the NOACA region over the next 2 years for the benefit of projects that are not currently on the NOACA tip or plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Geauga County Board of Commissioners respectfully request that NOACA implement the following practices. A, NOACA should follow the intent of the existing regional transportation investment policy until such time as a new policy is enacted. B, NOACA should perform a study to review all NOACA-funded projects within the last 7 years with regard to the proper sponsor maintaining the federal aid investment originally expended on each project and utilize the results of the study as part of the new RTIP funding criteria. NOACA should continue to emphasize the importance of system maintenance as an important component of our regional needs for transportation-related projects. And NOACA should consider SIB loans only on existing projects which have already completed the project planning review process. NOACA should continue to focus on preparing studies as needed for transportation-related planning and should not be involved in creating specific projects from pavement condition rating reports. NOACA should permit eligible political governments and agencies to initiate federal aid funding requests and not NOACA staff. Be it further resolved that the clerk of Geauga County Board of Commissioners is and shall hereafter transmit a certified copy of this resolution to NOACA.
Good.
We're all in agreement with that, if we could have a motion.
I would make a motion to that.
Second?
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye. The resolution stands approved.
Now, if we can get this to go back to the policy, can we get all the engineers,
Well, I believe so.
get them all there?
At least I can't speak for them, but I believe they will.
Yeah. They need to.
They're pretty passionate about this.
Yeah. I see that. I respect these guys.
Yeah, they brought up specific questions that are addressed in your resolution. so.
And
It's always
this
the
brings us to the next
bureaucracy.
issue with the NEOSCC. That we've also got a resolution in place.
Right.
Did you want to discuss this a little bit, Mary, as far as?
Yeah, I would just say, the NEOSCC seems to be an organization that's trying to put social ideas into policies and plans that we here in Geauga County, we don't want them telling us what businesses should be here and how we should operate. And when we were at Family First Council, just about everybody on that council, which included the superintendent, superintendent, we had Don Rice there.
Someone came from NEOSCC to speak.
Yeah, and we pretty well asked them in a very polite way that we are not interested and please do not come back. And then that was then put forth to the leadership at NOACA. And I have asked that in the policy plan that that's stricken from everything. At the very least, it should not ever affect policy that deals with Geauga County or any kinds of funding that deals with Geauga County. In my opinion, we should never not get funding based on those ideas. Now, that may be their ideas, but it's not Geauga County. We here in Geauga County like what we have. We like our semi-rural environment. We'd like to keep it this way, and we think we have done a fairly good job. And we don't need any OSCC telling us what to do.
Well, it's kind of,
Social engineering thing.
yeah, the litmus test is they don't like to move here. Most of them. I mean,
I don't
they want
know
to
what
change
they
it, but they
want.
would like to move here and then change it. And it's like
Well,
ridiculous. I mean,
That's one of the reasons we have our zoning in place. We want to keep our large lots so it stays the way it is. A lot of folks don't understand that, why zoning's so important and why, if you want to keep it the way we've got it, if we wanted to live in the city, we'd have moved there, right?
Right.
And Don Rice, you gotta hear him. He says, we've done just fine with the Department of Disabilities and all, and we don't need their interference. We've done just fine.
I am probably one of the least well-informed on this, but I know enough to know that there are severe issues. I'm just guessing that
Well, if-
when HUD gives you a $4 million grant to come up with a study, then they're gonna put pressure on the agencies that were involved to now openly embrace the results of the study. And that's where you folks have the opportunity to push back and say, we're
And
not
I
with
believe
them.
we should, and I have told the leadership there that this is coming, and I've mentioned that we want it stricken.
All right.
I do have a comment on this.
Yes,
This is
sir.
probably the thing that I feel the most strongly about, because I've been the most deeply
Vocal.
involved with this, and probably am the most knowledgeable person in this room on this subject. This is insidious, and it is far deeper than what Mary had talked about. And Mary, with respect, you voted to fund NEOCC.
Well, we funded a
So-
plan that we weren't sure, I mean, when they started to get going on
But
it,
you should have-
we funded a lot of
You
plans.
should have known, I mean, it was clear what they wanted to accomplish. If you looked at their grant application, it was clear. The grant application is very clear about what they wanted to accomplish. Everything that they did simply built a case around what they wanted to do. The lady from HUD, district manager from HUD, stood up and said, and I have the video and I will forward it to you, that said, now that we have control of northeastern Ohio, we can move forward. This is insidious. And what Dave had said is true. There is a plan. That plan is it starts at a federal plan. It's got 3 organizations, EPA, Department of Transportation, and HUD. They formed an organization called Sustainable Communities. Sustainable Communities has an agenda, and it is easy to see. You go to the website, it is there clearly on their website. Totalable Livable Communities, which Chardon has plugged into, is a part of that agenda. They have an agenda to change and transform the nature and the fabric of this country, to put the federal government more in control and so on and so forth. What was accomplished by NEOCC, and they voted, the bureaucratic board, if you look at the makeup of the board, you know this because you're on NOACA, you're the president of the board. The makeup of the NEOCC board is unelected, unaccountable individuals. There are a few elected people on there, but the majority of the board.
Well, you're talking about the 44 members of the board?
No, not the NOACA board, the NEOSCC board.
Oh, that.
If you look at the NEOSCC
Right.
board, those are the people that voted to approve their own, what I characterize as a bogus study, to approve their own study. They never allowed any open vetting, they never allowed any outside scrutiny or discussion or debate on their findings. And if you look at the policy statements, NOACA has made a move to institutionalize that, to actually bake it into the fabric of NOACA decisions. And so, pushing back on it may be one thing, but Geauga County will not be able to stop what is coming if we don't take a hardline stance now and work with other communities to do the same thing. Because if it's baked into that fabric, it will be part of the rules and regulations. You take road money, you will, along with that comes the strings associated with all the findings and so on and so forth. And so it is easy to see how they're winding it into those policy statements. And the policy statements are there, they're published, they're easy to look at. And I would love to we talked about a presentation to talk more about, all of the
I'm going to bring that
the
up.
very detailed, it's on their website. If you go out to the NEOCC.org website, their presentations are there. They're not hiding this. This is not secret. They're what they want to accomplish, what Hunter Morrison wants to accomplish as a long-time vision that he's had. He is a planner that's worked with Youngstown State University. He's got a doctorate in planning, and he is a long-time progressive, I'll use a polite word, progressive that has an agenda. He pushed that agenda in Cleveland. He used to be a planner in Cleveland. If you know his history and you look at his history, he has an agenda. That agenda is he's pushing it through now these, Regional Prosperity Initiative, Fund for Economic Growth, all these various organizations who have been pushing on this for a long time. And so I looked at this resolution. This is actually a good resolution. What I saw here, and I don't know who did it, it appears to cover most of the bases with one exception. What do we do if they don't go along with us? If they decide to
Well,
go
like
ahead
I said,
and
at the
vote
very
against us,
least, we should not be bound, and I would like that in there, that we would
that's what
not
I'd like
be
to
bound.
see. There should be a statement here that says,
Yeah.
look, if this is complied with, we will not comply.
Yeah,
And,
well,
and I'm saying that strongly. That
well,
has
I
to be
think
worded more correctly.
that would be our decision, but I believe that we should not be bound by any kind of funding that would take into consideration those values. period.
I hope that we do that. I mean, again,
Yeah.
this resolution, I don't know who did it, who's responsible for it.
Well, this was passed by our legal counsel
It
also.
looks, the resolution looks pretty
Good.
good to me for the most part. The only thing that I see in there is what happens if they don't care, and which I've seen them do. I mean, we're 3 votes out
Well,
of the 44.
I think we have
So-
an ability to, like I said, at the very least, that the funding for Geauga County would not be based upon the precepts or the principles of NEOSCC. And I would like to see that in the hard code written in there.
You know, Hunter Morrison has always said, this is,
Well, Hunter Morrison
this is gonna be
Cleveland.
selective, our elected officials, and part of why I don't like what NUCC does, because it undermines your authority.
I know.
Elected official authority.
But there's always
It is-
been lots of plans and policies put together that end up on the shelf. But this one,
Yeah, if it's baked into the rules though, then it's.
Well, we
if-
have found
If they set it
one
aside and made it
space.
optional, and if it's a set of recommendations over here, look, well, these are the recommendations, yada, 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 you get to pick and choose from these.
right,
Okay, well, then we get to pick and choose.
well,
But they're making that optional.
We're gonna be affected by this, even if we vote against it.
When I,
no,
Hunter
not
Morrison,
necessarily. It
Well,
all
if they're
depends on-
prioritizing funding based on this, then we're gonna
If
feel the
that's
effects
in,
of that.
if that's in their policy, the whole idea is to have it stricken from the policy, and the other idea is to have us exempt from that. That's got to be in there.
well,
period.
if HUD's funding, and now, HUD was a part of this. HUD has already made it clear what their objective is. HUD is a federal organization, and their grants that we take through Anita Stockard are obligations.
When you get to
and
that
strings
point, you've gotta
attached.
go a
And
little
so-
bit higher than us.
And so, well, all I'm saying is that
Gotta
if we
go higher than
recognize
us.
what the problem is, and you haven't seen all the details that I've seen, I'd love to have the opportunity to sit down and share a lot more details with you. But if you see the details, then we can fight something we know. If we are ignorant about it, and we don't know about what options or opportunities they have to try and wind this thing into the county. Hunter Morrison made the comment, I was debating him on NPR the other day. I don't know if you know if that even occurred. But I was invited by NPR to debate Hunter Morrison. Now, NPR, being who they are, tried to steer the conversation. And so I had very limited opportunity to try and take Hunter Morrison on. But one of the comments that he made was very telling. And I objected to the fact that Geauga County was never a part of this study. We've never had any input other than
No.
the AI analysis over here that they did at the Metropolitan Housing Authority. We've never had a part in it. We've opposed it at every stage. I mean, a number of us citizens, of the active citizens, regularly attended their meetings and opposed, and we got educated on what they were doing and so forth. And so Geauga County's never been a part of it. His comment to that was, Geauga County is a part of it. Geauga County is a part of NOACA. And because you're part of this organization who has approved this, you are a part of this.
They
That was
approved the
his comment,
study,
that's his
not the
mindset.
policy.
And so you
That's
have to
his
be,
mind-
you have to be
mindset.
aware of what they're thinking. So.
We've got a time frame.
Yeah,
It's called tomorrow,
yeah.
right? And,
Well, we're
So-
gonna get you to present down there, so.
yeah,
Yeah.
what we
That's the
need to do
goal,
is
yeah.
deal with the thing that we have prepared
Right, right. And then you
that we
can
can sign,
make your-
and that'll indicate our displeasure. We may have to revise it, but if we don't
At least we have
pass it
something.
we don't pass it this morning, we can't get it there by
Like,
tomorrow
good
morning.
point. I understand that we've got
I already told
somewhat
them
of a
it's
time.
coming.
This is very important stuff, though, and it's worth an amount of time.
Well,
The only comment that I would make, and I like the resolution, is we might contemplate putting in some wording that says, look, if you vote against us,
Well, we'll see you after
Then-
tomorrow.
Let's wait.
How it's taken.
Let's
And if we
wait.
have to put an additional addendum to that, we'll do it.
okay.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page here, although we may have different ways of
Looking.
describing it and saying it. But we do have to
Hold on.
get this thing down to Cleveland tomorrow, and this is a start.
We might not get there.
You may not get.
We're gonna get there because I already told her it's
all right.
coming.
All right.
I've already-
Thank you for the time.
If I have to
And-
email
and,
it.
No,
and
that's
whoever
fine.
did this, I give them kudos, because I think it's a good first step.
Okay, all right, so.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead then for resolution 14-044 dated March 13, 2014. This resolution is in opposition to the incorporation of NEOSCC endorsement and vibrant NEO 2040 objectives into NOACA planning policy documents. Whereas Geauga County Commissioners represent over 93,000 who have chosen to raise their family and operate business in a rural environment governed in a minimally intrusive way by elected officials who believe in personal responsibility, economic freedom, fiscal prudence, proper maintenance of public assets, including infrastructure, preservation of our unique balance of farmlands, large lot residential zoning, and centers of private sector entrepreneurial and industrial activity. Whereas, while the concept of governmental collaboration to achieve economies of scale can be beneficial in many cases to reduce costs, the regional revenue sharing advocated by Northeast Ohio Sustainable Communities Consortium within the Vibrant NEO 2040 plan would invariably promote transfer of resources from those communities that have been prudent in their fiscal planning, handling of expenditures, and maintenance of existing infrastructure to those communities that have not consistently adhered to those principles. And whereas NEOSCC, through the Vibrant NEO 2040 initiative, promotes the limiting of new residential and commercial developments to sites within established communities, as well as the incorporation of agricultural land preservation into long-range planning with a stated goal to refocus development into existing downtowns while discouraging economic development and encouraging the prohibition of any future business or population growth in rural areas such as Geauga County, through prioritization of infrastructure investments through a process which would, along with our methodology, evaluate the social equality impact of those investments. And whereas, taken as a whole, the goals promoted by NEOSCC under its Vibrant NEO 2040 planning document stand largely at odds with the principles of individual economic freedom and local government autonomy, which have stood this nation in good stead over the 238 years since our nation's founding. And now therefore be it resolved that Geauga County Board of Commissioners does hereby take strong exception and voices its opposition to the statements made in a NOACA draft policy document which advocates as part of the agency's broad strategy that NOACA's priorities and projects be closely aligned to other federal, state, and regional initiatives including Vibrant NEO 2040, and further requests that any NEOSCC reference be removed from NOACA policy documents. Be it further resolved that this resolution becomes part of the permanent record of the Board of Commissioners of Geauga County and the state.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye. Resolution stands approved.
Bob Voss.
Thank you.
Ralph, Bob Voss is here to talk about his
Okay, Bob Voss. Sure, come on up.
I know I wasn't on the agenda, and I apologize, but this was something that came up kind of unexpectedly, and I felt an urgency to bring it to your attention today.
Okay.
Again, this is the first time in 30 years as a county employee and as a county citizen that I even come before the commissioners. That's why I just want you to say I don't do this as a normal kind of procedure, and I appreciate taking the time to listen to what I have to say. This all stems from the Fowler's Mill Replacement Bridge, which I know that this past Tuesday's commissioners meeting, you approved the engineer's plan to go out for bid. And I think part of my biggest grievance, I guess, is what I'm raising here, is that the engineer's office proceeded to get your approval, fully well knowing that we were having a trustees meeting that evening in which the deputy engineer was there to just talk a bit more about the project and the specifics of the project, because
Shane
Hajar was there. And I appreciated his being there because he did field many questions from many people in the community who have not heard about this at all. And I think as I roll back my grievance, it goes back to the very first awareness of this project. And it being the most affected property was not formally notified by the engineer's office at all. Neither was my neighbor. It was secondhand that I even found out about it. And one of the affected property owners, even as of Tuesday night, was not notified of the project. So I feel as a affected property owner, as a taxpayer, and as a citizen, I think I wasn't afforded the proper protocol as far as the awareness of this project. And now that I have at least notified my neighbors and in the community, to which, again, I've tried very hard to follow the process as to which, and not to jump over any trustees, because I don't even think the trustees fully well knew about what was going on. And so they graciously, Irene McMullen, who I know spoke to you this morning,
And she sent
Mr.
me
Beer,
an email.
and we're gonna
Very
again
lengthy
try to
email,
have a
actually.
meeting with the commission,
Next Tuesday.
you and the
Tuesday.
engineer's office. But I guess
26th.
at this point, the genie's out of the bottle. The
No,
community
16th.
is weighing in on their concerns about the plans, which is the reason why I'm here, is I don't know if you are aware that, first of all, I'm opposed to even the revised plan that the engineer has come up with. But my biggest concern in the outcry that I feel, and everyone else feels, is that at the end of the project, the completed project will result in a wider bridge, larger berm, and no guardrails. And I think there is a outcry about that regarding safety, not only for my own safety, because I am so close to the road and spend a lot of time there in that area next to the bridge for our garden, but there was so much input from general, community about kids going down the road, driving down the road. As you know, it's at the bottom of a hill. I got to tell you, this morning was unbelievable how dangerous that road was, given all the ice and the snow. And I just say, I do not understand the logic of changing the entire nature of that bridge and not having a guardrail up. That's my biggest
Your issue is the guardrail?
Well, no, it's not the guardrail. My biggest issue is, first of all, the way the county engineer's office handled making affected property owners aware that this was happening and not getting the input that they needed from all the affected parties. And then my biggest thing is, I believe the engineer's office now is trying to say, we're going to change the bridge, therefore we're going to change the rest of the road, north and south of the bridge. And I think the trustees have a responsibility here for the maintenance of that road and what would happen to the road, which includes the guardrails, whether they are there or not. But I think because the engineer's office feels it needs to be a wider bridge and everything else north and south of it then has to be bermed, literally, that it would practically come down to my garden fence, because they feel it'll be safer. And I guess the whole logic of it is, and I'm not going to get into a whole debate about what the engineers feel is best regarding safety, because they have done a nice job across the county taking care of our roads and our bridges. But in that area, in that specific bridge, the application that they're trying to apply, I think it doesn't work.
Now
And
that
if they
area,
have just the authority to change the bridge, take the old wooden bridge out and put a concrete bridge in there the same size, you don't have to do anything north and south of the bridge, just replace the bridge. And it doesn't affect the look of the appearance of the historic area, keeps everything the way it is. It just brings the bridge up to date so that it'll serve for another 100 years.
well,
So
Mr.
I don't know
Voss.
if you were all aware that.
yeah, we heard, well,
That
we
there's
heard
gonna be no
about it
guardrails.
this morning, because Irene McMullen called and she left a long message that she would like to have a meeting on March 16th at their trustees meeting at 6:30, is what she said here.
They told me the 26th, I wrote it on my
Well,
calendar.
here it
in
is.
the office.
This is the email I got,
So I don't know what.
March 11th
I didn't
at
wanna wait till the
11:18
26th.
PM.
The
But-
the community is expecting another
Would
meeting.
you like, I mean, we have our engineer here, and I think that Joe's a very reasonable individual. Joe, would you want to address this?
I'd love to address that, because there was some obvious misnomers in that. Mr. Voss, I had talked to Andy Bushman going on a year ago. He said that he knew you well, and that he would like to go down and talk to you guys prior to the project. My understanding is he did. He told me he did.
A couple times, yes.
Okay. One of the things you said here is trustees didn't know about it. He knew about it. You guys had a conversation almost a year ago And you did realize the need for the replacement of the bridge. Would that be a correct assessment of your conversation with Andy?
I have been waiting for this day because I knew eventually the bridge was gonna have to be replaced. And I was my ears and eyes were open. And then when I read in the paper that you had approved the budget to replace the bridge, I was like, wow, how did they do that? I didn't even know it was on the docket because for funding, I realized that, you know, that was gonna be a project, and I thought maybe I might, or the community might be aware that it wasn't on the docket in the papers for this year, but all of a sudden, it just became a project that was not only gonna be on the docket this year, but you already gotten the commissioners the funding to do it, and you already had plans drawn up.
Well, it doesn't
that you
take long to
submitted.
do something that small.
It
But
happened
when you
quickly,
say
though.
you didn't know, this just came about here in the last, what, 4 to 6 months where the first resolution was? And you were talked to back in the summer by Andy, and he said you were good with it, and as long as it was wider, so people could walk across the street without having a chance of getting hit. This is what was conveyed from Andy, so you say you didn't know about it, but you knew about it, and I asked him, well, do I need to talk to him? He said, no, everything's good once we get some plans together, so make sure we, you know, just keep everybody in the loop.
It goes back to when Bob Phillips was engineer, and we
Okay.
knew eventually that this was gonna be a project, and we said, you know what, it would be nice if the people from the area, the Fowler's Mill, you know, historic district had some kind of input into it.
But
Because
did you have
what
input?
we did,
My understanding is you did.
I guess I didn't know what you had already planned and had drawings.
We
which-
had no plans or no drawings prior to Andy Bushman talking to you. Nothing. We had nothing.
Well, the first plans that were presented to me from Shane were not only that you needed and wanted an easement from my
It's
property.
very usual
for-
by a bridge.
Well, okay, but I mean, the scope and nature of the bridge was so large with the wing walls, I was just, you're basically, you know, I'm gonna put a wing wall into my garden, which floods
Right.
tremendously, and I thought that just
Does
can't.
your garden flood is what you're
Well,
saying?
yeah, I mean, it
But,
does,
you
but
know,
that's really not the point.
and
The
Bob
point
brings
is, it
this
doesn't
up,
need to
I'm just
be that
curious.
large a scope
And we
project.
did, we let him have input, we took the plans back, and we changed everything on the plans he wanted, except adding guardrail that was not warranted in the right-of-way, which can cause a hazard if it's not warranted. Did we not change the structure of the bridge, the wing walls, the outlet structures, the embankment, everything that you asked for besides the guardrail? Would that be fair?
That would be fair to you to say that, but the whole point is, we didn't want to have an extra wide bridge with berms without guardrails, and the whole point is, if you keep the guardrails intact, you don't even need to expand the bridge. And that's the scope of your authority, is just the bridge,
Mhm.
not the whole road. And so I think we're at loggerheads now between the trustees and the county commissioner as to what
Well, and
authorities you
we're not,
have.
because you hit the nail on the head. I had to talk with each trustee individually, which I doubt they know that I have because they're not allowed to talk because of sunshine laws. And I told each one individually, what you said is exactly right. The bridge falls under our authority. The ORC says the bridge, even if it's on a township road, it's county engineers maintain, design improvements, so forth and so on. Now, what you're saying is the guardrail has to do with the road. I've told each one of those trustees individually that I'm done with this project. If you want to put guardrail back up, I'm not going to go and rip it out. That's your decision, but it is not warranted. So you are free to do it if you choose to do so.
And that's my point.
Okay.
Joe, no disrespect. You don't have to do this big project and then leave it upon the trustees to put guardrails up or not. You don't need to do that size and scope of project if you just replace the bridge and leave everything else alone, which reduces the cost and the aggravation, and everybody in this whole community was up in arms Tuesday night, and I kind of was upset that you came here Tuesday morning, not only got it approved, and then went out for bid before we had a public discussion about it, and it just boggles my mind why you would have done that, knowing
Why I
that
would
we
have
still
done
had
that?
some concerns.
Well, first of all, I was told that things were resolved, and I may have been, that may have been not exactly how it worked out, but I was told it was. Second of all, the place for public discussion on a county bridge is in a county office here at the Commissioners, what we're doing right now, not at a township trustees meeting where they have no authority over that particular item. So.
That's why I'm here today,
Well, and
because
yeah,
I
and I
thought
think
maybe you
that's
might
great.
wait until the trustee meeting, to at least bring some input back so that you could say, not everything has been agreed to, there are some issues, and by the way, are you aware that a lot of the concerns had to do with the kids from Notre Dame coming down that road, going to school, coming back, flying down there over the bridge? A lot of parents were concerned about the safety of their kids. It has nothing to do with, it'll be safer, Joe. It's been safe, and the guardrails helped make it that safe. Why would you remove them
In your own words.
at my peril?
In your own words, in 27 years, those guardrails have never been hit. Is that correct? Is that a true statement?
Well, it is. It's a fact, and that's my whole point. My point is, leave well enough alone, and the whole scope of the project, just as the bridge, just replace the wooden bridge and put a concrete bridge there. Everybody will be pleased with that, and I'm not the only one here speaking on behalf of what I think a lot of people are outraged about. Not hearing about it, not knowing about it, not having any say into it, and even affected property owners not being notified properly.
But you're saying that, but you were talked to, and what I was told, I wasn't there, but what I was told is you wanted a wider structure so that when people were walking down the road, it would be safer for them. Is that not true? Was that, did Andy misinform me of that conversation?
No, he didn't misinform.
So you're saying, why are you making it wider, but you were the one of the ones that asked it to be wider?
Joe, we can mince words about what wider means. 2 feet would have been nice. 15 feet on either side is excessive, that you could actually park a car off to the side of the road. That's not acceptable. I mean, it just is overkill, and maybe that's the whole point. It have to be
I would
that
just
way.
like to say one thing. I would like to mention, the Fowler's Mill area is an extremely sensitive area historically. And being a trustee for the last nine years ago, we had an issue with a single lane bridge. Do you remember that, Joe?
I'm very aware of that.
And that was quite a stir. And I think the engineer ended up putting a really nice brick facade on it, and it actually ended up okay. But I think Joe acted what he felt, you know, talking to each trustee, but understanding your issues. I know that's a very sensitive area. I know that. Oh, do I know that? And it's a historical area, and it's on the registry of historical places. If there was something we could do, I don't know, Joe.
Well, let me ask you a question, Joe. I mean, I remember seeing this before
Yeah.
on something that
Yeah.
came across this table.
Right, you would have signed.
Did we have a
the
public
necessity.
hearing?
We did.
Well, you would have signed the public convenience and necessity. You
Yeah.
would have signed that resolution.
Yeah.
And that was some time ago, and that's when I addressed to you that Andy Bushman said that he talked to the residents in the area, and that they just asked that it be a little wider so it's safe for people to walk on it, and we were addressing that with the
We did.
design, and we were
Okay, I remember
talking
there
about-
was something
Something
months
about the
ago.
width.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Before we can
It's
do
more
any
about the
work, we have to have that convenience and necessity before we can start the design and so forth. So we didn't start the design until after that period. So, again, and it's something like this.
Can I ask Joe a couple questions?
Certainly.
As a licensed registered professional engineer, I've, in previous discussions on roadside safety, I believe I've heard you talk about things about the trade-off between a guardrail as a safety method and designing a slope at a gentle angle, and the relative advantages of either of those in following engineering best practices. I'm assuming that's part of the thought process and what
Absolutely.
ended up going on down there.
Right, absolutely. If you can, you know, not only practical experience, but location and design manual from the state would dictate if you can get to a 3-to-1 slope, meaning you run out 3 foot for every foot you drop, a car will not flip over, and it's considered a traversable slope. At that point, you have protected the hazard without placing something there for a car to hit. A guardrail is only to be placed when it's warranted, because it in itself can become a hazard if it's protecting something that is less
Is
of a
that to
hazard.
protect, is a guardrail to protect the driver
Yes,
or the property?
the driver. And that's a
So-
conversation that Mr. Voss and I had yesterday, and I understand his concern because his garden's in close proximity to the
Well,
to
I
the
think
right of
he
way.
has that nice garden with it's like an English garden there. I
Right,
remember
right.
always
I would
going
agree.
by.
It's not in close proximity. It's right next to the road right away, to which the berm will come right down to,
To.
next to the fence. I mean, if a car
the
comes off
fence.
the road,
It'll
they're
smash the
hitting us
fence.
now. And if you have to cut grass or maintain, like I have, you're literally thankful that there's a guardrail there, because otherwise
You feel
they're zipping
protected.
by 50 miles an hour. It's just,
Uh-huh.
it's a known fact. And if the
Because you're going down a hill.
and if the
How many- not to
sheriff's
put the
office
sheriff
is here,
on,
they
but-
would be clearly aware that that's a speeding zone down there. They don't go 35. Rarely do they go 35 down that road. It's at the bottom
Now-
of a bowl.
Did you do that on Bass Lake Road recently? Didn't you change the slopes? I mean, because it was a concern that
Yeah.
they were like 3-4 feet.
Oh, they were about
Did
6
you-
feet deep.
Yeah.
There were some hazards
I mean, if
out
we
there
stepped in, you
that
wouldn't
we
find us.
eliminated. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That was a beautiful job, actually.
Thank you.
So I wanted to bring it to your attention
Mhm.
that I believe you may have approved something without fully well knowing the impact of not only that there were no guardrails intended for this design, second, that the input from the affected property owners still have not been really fully received, and that if their input weighed in on the community as they're getting more aware of it, is becoming vocal and upset about it. I thought that was the venue to do it, was at the trustees meeting. I did not know that you were going to come here that morning and try to get it approved as written. I did watch the video, and I appreciate you have video, so I could at least hear what you said, Joe, and there was really no mention of no guardrails, or that there was still opposition and dissent to the plan. I appreciate Shane Hajar's, he's been very professional, he's been very willing to come to us, and has revised the plans and has tightened them up within the road right-of-way. And I understand there's a limit to what we can do if the project's in the road right-of-way. I get that, but my whole point is, Joe, is just the scope of what you're trying to do to the whole road. I don't know if that's
When you
really,
say- well-
that's your responsibility or your authority to do that. I
Well,
don't,
when you say the whole road, I mean, I heard you talking before I came up here about we're telling them to do the entire road. We've had no
The whole
conversation of that.
berm
We're
south
talking
of-
about a couple hundred feet.
yeah,
I
That's
mean,
not
you're
the
only
whole
allowed
road.
to go
The
so
road's
far.
several miles.
but that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
North
You're
and
talking about
south of
a
the
couple hundred
bridge.
feet.
North and
So
south
you-
of the bridge.
I mean, you build a bridge, you don't think there's a transition into it where
I
other
don't
work
build
has to be
bridges,
done?
I know that that's not my expertise.
Right,
My
and
whole
it is
point is,
mine.
it is
Right.
yours, my whole point is if you can just make it look a lot closer to what it is today without this big expanded bridge and just leave the guardrails intact, I just think that's a win-win-win all the way around, and I don't know why this has to be contentious. So
Well,
that's
yeah,
my
I
point.
would question too, I mean, because, and I'll reiterate, it was your input that also helped us in the direction that, yeah, we can make this wider.
Joe, I'm one person, I have opinions and input, I've been soliciting, I was the one that got the neighbor to be informed about it, not your engineer's office. I was the one that got the other affected property owner to be aware, not your office. I'm the one that's making the community aware and the other trustees who are not aware, not your office. This project has zipped down the road, it's at the point of being out for bid, and the community is now saying, what are they doing? How do we weigh in at this point to say, we don't really want it to look the way you want it to look at the end? That's really where we're at. We don't
Well,
want it
you
to
know,
look like that.
And Commissioner Samedi made
So.
a great point about all the stirrings and noise about the Moccasin Falls Bridge and everything. And what I found was interesting is at the meeting, the trustees meeting the other night was, why don't you make it look like that bridge?
Oh, that was a
When-
battle.
When everybody prior to that one said it was a
Yeah.
horrible thing, now they're all saying, well, why don't you make it like that?
Well, it's not the same, and it's just has,
Well,
it's
well,
not an apple and an apple here.
Well, and I would argue that a lot of times it can be, because when we draw the plans and we design the plans, we're doing it for safety, but we also, you know, we're looking at a flat piece of paper, but us engineers know exactly what that looks like when it's done. And we appreciate the fact that the homeowners don't, and you probably can't picture fully what this will look like when it's done. And so I understand that you have some fears and apprehensions, but I couldn't, if I had $1 for every time someone came up to me after a project and said, I'm sorry for the hard time I gave you, I didn't realize that it was gonna look like this when you're done, but it looks great, and we appreciate your patience with us. And
Joe, I have a question. With the bridge, there's there's water that runs. Is there, I
this
mean,
is actually the same channel that goes under Sherman and Auburn, the new bridge over there.
okay.
It's way around.
Well, what will happen, like, you know, if his, I sort of remember how his property looks, got a picket fence there. Is there going to be some diversion of that water so it doesn't I mean, how is that water gonna be diverted?
The channel's not,
There's
the
n-
shape
well-
and size of the channel's not changing at all.
It doesn't change? You're not digging a great big ditch there?
No, that won't change at all.
What about the runoff from those?
Yeah, the side
The
berms.
side berms and sloped, are they gonna have a swale incorporated in them before it gets to, where he's talking about where his garden, in other words, when it slopes down?
Yeah.
And the water that runs
It's right
off, the
next
surface
to the-
water, is it gonna be channeled away from his
Yeah, that's
property back
my
to the
concern.
It all
ditch?
runs downhill to the creek. I mean,
Yeah, that's, I'm not
There's a
familiar with the
stream.
lot, so.
Yeah, it's a
I-
really pretty area.
I've had good discussions with Shane Hajar about that, and Al Prescott, and Andy Bushman was there that one Saturday, on the 1st of this month, March. So we did discuss that. My biggest concern at this point is the scope of the project and the lack of guardrails. I'm just questioning why it needs to be done, and why can't it just be replace the bridge, leave the guardrails up, and make the project scope smaller, more cost effective, and
Well, that's not true.
it wouldn't be?
No, it would not be.
Okay,
No.
well,
That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, when I talked to you yesterday, your only concern you had with me is you wanted guardrail put back up. And that's why I talked to each individual trustee and told them if they want to put up guardrail, they can put up guardrail because that's a roadway element. If they think they need to protect your garden with the guardrail, that has nothing to do with a bridge, and they can put it up. I'm saying it doesn't meet warrants, but I understand there's a situation where you are in the garden in close proximity to the road, and it can protect you. So, you know, what I'm doing is I'm offering up here, you're getting what you want, but it seems that there has to be a pound of flesh on the table. And, you know, if the trustees are agreeable to put that guardrail up, which,
How much would that be, Garvey, just questioning?
well, it depends, are you talking both sides of the road or just yours?
I think that's where I keep coming back to you, and if Shane would attest to.
Is it
there
both
was
sides
there's-
now,
There's
or-
an outcry from many concerned citizens that live along that road, that they would like to weigh in on this. That's why a public forum and some kind of formal discussion, not you going around each individual person separately. That's why, you know, a town hall meeting, I felt was important to get everybody's input. It's not just me, Joe, that feels this way. And I'm just one voice coming to you as a concerned citizen who's mostly affected by this project, but other people want to weigh in too. And I don't know what venue or where is appropriate to do that.
Well,
I
this
just wanted
is-
to come here to
this
make
is.
everybody aware.
Yeah.
It's not a pound of flesh, Joe. You know, it's a process that I feel from the start was poorly communicated, and it continues to this day to not be communicated through the channels I think that are
I would question
appropriate.
if poorly communicated in that you were approached and you were for this over a year
We
ago,
never got
before the
anything
plans were
from
even
you,
started.
Joe, not one, not one official correspondence or
Well,
Or-
until
or a phone call, you
until
know,
the plans are
until
designed.
the plans were designed.
There's nothing, you were approached, everything was good. Andy said, no, you're good with it, and you thought it should be wider. So you were talked to, and then the plans got designed, and then when there's a need for right-of-way, then you're talked to. So the process worked exactly how it had to. You just don't like the final outcome, to which your only thing that you expressed to me was a concern is guardrail. And I've already said, if the trustees want to put it up to protect you and your garden, I'm not gonna fight that. That has nothing to do with the bridge. It has to do with something they want to do on their road.
If I might jump in here for a moment. I don't know what took place or didn't take place with the notification or the fact that people didn't know or didn't understand what was going on. I think I'm going to speak for all three of us, that we're not engineers and we don't know what is required and needed for a bridge or a massive culvert type bridge, and that we rely on the engineers who have the education and the license to do this. And yet I understand your concerns, and if they want to have a public hearing, if
Well,
it doesn't-
they're looking at the 18th, which is next Tuesday. They're looking at a meeting, what Bob
Okay,
said. I think that's their regular meeting date, isn't it?
It's our regular
The
meeting
18th.
date, I know.
Well, it's in the
Morning,
evening,
yeah.
6:30.
24th or- I'm
But
not
the
sure.
problem,
Well, the issue that I have here is that you're looking at an inanimate object right now, which is a plan, and you dispute it, and it hasn't been done yet. And he says it's going to be workable and safe, and I assume aesthetically appealing to most people. Maybe the correct course is to go ahead and make the changes for the safety and the slope and so on and so forth, and revisit the guardrail once the project's done to see if it in fact warrants that when it's complete. I don't even profess to think that I know what it's going to look like, because I don't even know where it is, except that it's down there by the mill. I don't know how that highly trafficked road that is. I've lived here my whole life, been on it 4 times.
Well, it's a historical area.
Yeah, I understand. The people that live there use it and so on. But again, I can't speak for Ralph or Mary, but I have to trust in the opinion of the engineer who was trained to do this, and let him go and do his thing so it's safe and complies and is there for the next 50 or 60 years. And then if it causes the difficulties that you are presenting, which it may, I'm not saying it isn't, then we revisit that at that time.
Well, it's his perception, is what he's feeling when he's out there so close to the road. In fact, it's going downhill. That's what he's saying. I mean, you're driving downhill and you're not feeling safe. That's what he's saying.
Right.
I guess. But I know the engineer would never put anything that was unsafe in, ever. But I'll tell you this, many years ago in Munson, we were given the opportunity to give Fowler's Mill to the county and keep it as a Munson trustee road. And we kept it at Munson for one reason. And that's because if you drive down Fowler's Mill, it's very narrow. And if you drive down there, there are trees that are virtually on the edge. And that's a dangerous situation when you're driving, because if you hit a tree. But the people...
Well, there's already been a death on those.
Yeah, so, it's a very dangerous situation. But the people on Fowler's Mill were so adamant about that. That's why I can't... But the engineer would never...
Barry, I'm not here because I'm unreasonable. I'm here
I know.
because
I'm just saying. I'm just trying to give a
guardrails
historical.
are different than trees.
Yeah.
Guardrails are to keep people from going off the road.
Off the roads, right?
A narrow bridge, a narrower bridge. Now I'm realizing, I think, it's the reason why there hasn't been too many accidents there, because people do tend to
slow down
as they go.
Because of the narrow bridge.
Well, if there's a car or a truck coming the other way, which there are often, you don't speed up when there's another car coming at you. You tend to go a little slower. So the guardrails, I always feel in my mind, has been a good precautionary safety measure. Taking them away, I think it just invites liability and risk. And so I don't know why you would do that, and that's my...
Make the road safer, people will travel faster. That's your point.
Yeah,
well,
I think so. Yeah.
Not having the guardrail there, since it was there for how many years?
Right.
Well, this is one of the reasons we're voting on this. I brought it up yesterday, I think, somewhere in here.
Tuesday.
Is the timing. Yeah, Commissioner Rear inquired if this would require the road to be closed, and if so, how long it would be expected. Mr. Cattell explained that the contractor is given 30 days to complete and expects that it may take that length of time. Well, I can't read here. That length of time due to the size of the structure, along with the water and beaver dams in the area, not to mention our Ohio weather. Clearly, if that road needs to be closed, it needs to be closed when there's no school during that summer break. So yeah, so that goes through, which obviously puts some time constraints on. We're already mid-March. By the time you get through with the bidding process and all the rigmarole, I mean, I'm assuming they would really like to be going in June.
July. June.
That's the reason why I've had my ears open, and I read the paper, and that was not anywhere thinking that you were gonna replace that bridge this year. I heard last year, I heard maybe soon, but now all of a sudden, it just seems like it's kind of raced forward to this point. Fine, I'm glad we're gonna replace the bridge, the old wooden bridge. That's not the argument, we're not debating that. It's just now the scope of it and how it affects everything else north and south of the bridge. And it would be real silly to have guardrails up on sides and nothing over the bridge. It just defies logic, I guess, in my mind. So I'm bringing this forward just to shed some more light on it.
We appreciate
And
that.
well, I'm the only one apparently here that's saying anything, but there are a lot of people that couldn't be here that
Joe,
would
do
probably
you
want to
wanna
say something. So we
Go to their meeting on the 18th?
Well, I've already, well, they want me on the 28th, they want to have a
Oh,
special
they
meeting.
changed it to the 28th?
I agreed to that a long time
I
ago.
put like 4 different dates, so
Well,
that needs to be
all I'm
clarified. Because I wrote it when
All
Irene
I'm
was.
looking at is the email I got,
Yeah, Irene
which
was sitting there
states
this morning and said it's on the 26th.
March
I wrote it. I'm
18th
like,
at
26th is a
6:30.
Wednesday,
That's why I
28th
was-
is a Friday,
18th.
18th is a Tuesday.
18th, March 18th.
That's why I
at-
was hoping we would have that meeting Tuesday night, and then you would be discussing this here today,
Well,
rather than it already
The
got
engineer
approved.
takes care of so many things.
Well, because of the time frame, I
hear you.
can't speak for them, but I can't see, even if it was
2
possible.
days wouldn't make a difference, Mary. 2 days wouldn't make a difference.
Not continuing with the bid process, because that's gonna take some period of time for that to come in. If there's any changes, then
Well-
it's done with an addendum, but we have to, and I'm not proposing any changes, I'm just saying we have to go ahead and keep go forward with the project and make
I don't know that we have-
accommodations or whatever as they
Well,
come. We can't stop.
if it's just a guardrail.
It's not a disagreement with the bridge. It's not the bridge. It's
Okay, well,
north and south of the bridge, that's,
It's north and south.
well, that's.
well, north
but
and
that's
south,
the
you
scope of
say
this
the
The
only
project.
design of
100
the
feet.
approaches, and the
Yeah,
way it's
it's-
gonna be sloped and all
Yeah,
that.
and
Well,
we've
replace the
already
bridge. Go ahead and
accommodated
do
that,
that.
we changed the wing wall to a straight section on the end for Mr. Voss. We even are bringing in some historic bridge stones to put along the right of way
Oh,
to,
that's nice.
you know, to enhance the area
That's really
and
nice.
hold the embankment back. We've
Yeah.
made some major changes. We've even let them pick the dye lot color of the sealer on the structure. I mean, we've accommodated up one side, down the other. This whole thing is really based around, he wants guardrail back. And I've addressed that with the trustees.
Is there an artist rendering? You know what I mean?
No.
Of the-
How about
Okay.
like a brick?
The conflict
You
you're
know,
always gonna have, I've seen it over the years, the county engineer
I think it'd
only
be
knows
nice to
how to
get boulders
design
set on
it,
these.
design it as safe as possible. So,
Yeah.
and most of us like to drive around the county,
If it was
but
your place,
in
you'd
front of
feel
our
the
own
same.
house, we don't
If it's your
necessarily
house.
want the safest design, we want people to go real slow in front of our own house, right?
With them.
Okay, but he's gotta look out for the general public that uses those roads, so that's the conflict we always
And
have.
I'm weighing in on the general public, and they're
Okay.
saying, please have guardrails.
Well, the
Having
general
said
public
that,
in
are
your
we
area.
gonna go to the meeting on the 18th?
Not all the people from the county.
That's what they
take that
said.
road.
Do you want me to call her?
That needs verified, because she even just told me this morning it was the following Wednesday.
Wow.
The 26th.
I'm
or
just-
whatever that
That's
is.
what I said. I
See
know
how
what
it's-
you got.
I mean, I'm just reading here, Tuesday, they don't have meetings on Wednesdays, they have a Tuesday meeting.
She was setting a special meeting for it, because she
Okay.
wanted that to be the only, well, she said she wanted Sherman Road on the agenda too, and then she changed that
Oh,
up this morning.
gosh, I don't.
That's why I say
mean,
that's step one, is
I
we
think we
need
need to talk
to,
to
we need
her.
to talk about
I
what
guess
date
here's
it
the
is.
thing, I mean, we're early enough into this that we could have some discussion, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll go back and revisit a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll plan to be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
You both could be
If
there.
we can be all there.
And then,
Yeah.
I would imagine that we'll have probably some of the other people, if it's in the evening, I think their meeting is at
Because she
night.
has
Yeah.
March
Yeah, they
18th
wanted
at
it.
Do we need
6:30.
to advertise that?
But if it's a special meeting.
That's what she's
We
got
need
here,
to
but
have
I'll
an ad.
call
We
her.
have to get with them and find out.
Want me to call her now?
The way that
Yeah,
that
that
your
would be
meeting's
real
scheduled,
Wait,
is
hold
that
this
they
phone,
can
hold
attend
this
as long
phone.
as they don't discuss with each other or make any
Right,
decisions.
they're just there
They can
attending
attend
someone
the
else's
meeting.
meeting.
Wait,
Yeah,
and
it's
not
like all three
conferring
of you
more
can
about
go to
it.
the township association.
Oh.
Just don't sit together.
Just don't sit
Okay.
together, don't talk to each other. You can go and get information.
we'll each sit. Wait, I'm calling.
I'm just thinking, what's the possibility of all three of us sitting in a room together and not talking?
Spread out.
Well, can't you?
Maybe involve the use of
I've
gays.
got
That ain't gonna happen.
What
Duct
day
tape,
is
duct
it?
tape.
Yeah,
Which
just
is
silver
what?
tape, everybody's.
The 18th? Wednesday, the 26th at 6:30. Now, in your email, you said Tuesday, the 18th. You know, are you aware of that?
So it's the 26th now?
Wednesday, the 26th.
Oh, Joe, you weren't available that day, Tuesday. You're blamed again.
Yeah, I gave her 6 availabilities.
You're available on the 26th. Yeah, that's what he said you did. But, you know, unfortunately, I had one email, Blake had another, Bob had another, and we all have different dates. Okay, moving target. So, Wednesday, the 26th at 6:30,
Add this
At
to
their
the
town
meeting
hall.
schedule.
at their town hall. Why don't we make that our
Advertise
meeting?
you will be attending.
Why don't we make that our meeting?
Make it their meeting.
Yeah, but we
Well,
talked
I would
about going
argue it
to
is your
townships.
meeting because it's a
No, it's
county
our meeting.
project.
That could be our evening.
Not on Wednesday, but.
That could be, yeah, but
Could
that
have a
could be
special
our,
meeting
that could be
anytime
our evening meeting, so
We
that,
wanna go
no.
there. We don't wanna go
I'm
there.
so glad everyone agrees. I've got,
We don't wanna go there.
I got about 15 people here and everybody has their own opinion.
We want it to be productive. We don't
So
wanna go
are we gonna do the Wednesday, the 26th board? Ralph, are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, as far as I know,
I'm good. Are you good, Bob?
That's fine.
Unless I hit the
And
line
now
with
most
that
of
day,
all
and then I don't care.
is our engineer.
Are you good with that, Joe?
Yeah, I was good with that back when I
Okay,
reorganized
all right,
subject.
okay, I'm just saying, okay, we're good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
I
you.
appreciate your time and Joe.
Now we'll find out what's on our agenda for that day.
We'll work it out.
We have one,
So
executive
then,
session.
we could make a motion to enter into executive session with Dave Blair.
And Heidi Delaney and Colleen Lockhart will be joining us.
It's for the purpose of discussing compensation of public employees.
Have a motion.
Oh, so moved.
Second,
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
There'll be no action, is that correct?
Correct.
There'll be no action on, when we return to public session.
So you don't want to stay?
Other than to
Gee
adjourn.
whiz.
You're ready.
Alrighty.
Go for it.
So if we can, we're back from executive session with no action, and if we could have a motion
Is
to
that 12,
return.
12:18?
So moved. And we can read
Second.
all the meetings.
Okay.
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 Okay.